California seeks to ban the sales of diesel commercial vehicles in an effort to, you guessed it, fight climate change. So we'll talk about that. And, well, what that actually means practically, because I've lived in a state where that's actually been the case, honestly. But it was a tiny state. And a bigger state like California actually might have a little bit of an impact, but we will talk about that and what this means going forward. McCarthy reveals a new commitment to America agenda that the GOP will pursue if they retake the House. Will it pass? Probably not, because anything that happens in the Senate, no matter what, if it gets to the president's desk, it'll get vetoed, but we'll see some of the ideas that they want to come out with, and a huge spin cycle trying to spin this into a negative thing. So we'll go over some of that and where we go with that. Stacey Abrams is telling us that fetal heartbeats are medically false, and it's all a product of big ultrasound machine. That's right, it's not big pharma anymore that you have to worry about. It's big ultrasound machine. The patriarchy is so crafty, and Mark Zuckerberg is hit with legal complaints over his alleged attempts to influence the 2020 election that we all knew didn't happen because nothing bad happened, and in fact, Joe Biden really is the most popular president in history. 81 million votes, folks. 10 scoops of ice cream. Honk honk. Wink wink. Nudge nudge. More popular than Barack Obama. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to midterm season. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know, typically when I put the title card up like that, all I'm doing is going through and checking all the monitors, making sure everything is still live, making sure that we connected everything, and as of recently, making sure that I didn't get kicked off YouTube because, well, we all know that's coming at one point here. But today, instead, I sneezed. As soon as I switched the scene, I looked over here and I let off 4 massive sneezes because, yes, this is the time of year again where the pine trees begin to fornicate with each other. So they can go make little tiny pine trees that go all over the place, which I enjoy little tiny pine trees. It's the act. And somehow the act affects me. Makes me get all the sniffles and everything, so, I mean, we're going to watch some video at some point, and I'm probably going to jump up and, well, go blow my nose like I typically do at this time of year. It's, like, at the changing of the season into the spring, it got really, really bad, and I was worried I was going to have another bad year, but, it did kind of balance itself back out, and we had a pretty decent summer, allergy-wise, but they're back in a vengeance again, so do bear with me. Thank you guys for bearing with me, too, by the way, and we'll try to keep it as professional as possible, but sometimes things are going to happen because that's what the pine trees do. And it's one of those things that you have to deal with when you stream for 2 hours every single day. But with that, we've got to get into it. We've actually got to get started, and we've got some news to go over. It's a little bit of a shotgun blast again. There's no real big major story going on today. It's a lot of little stories, but we might even get caught up with some of the backlog that we have going on here. But we do have to cut it a little bit earlier than we usually do because I have the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat through the week written down here. And every name on this list is going to get a special individualized thank you. Kind of picked up a little bit later in the week. It was kind of nice. It was kind of cool. But it was a bit better than last week as far as chatters go. But we had more viewers this week. We didn't have as many live chatters. I'm sorry. We had more viewers last week, on average, but we didn't have as many live chatters last week as we did this week. We had more live chatters this week, but not quite as many viewers. So, on average, with that, looked at the analytics, and everybody's going to get the thank you at the end of the show. But let's get into the news, because that'll come at the bottom of the show. And by the way, get your stuff in today, because at the bottom of the show, we'll be looking in at some of the live chats, some of the things that you guys are saying. Do keep in mind, we are trying to temper our language and keep ourselves catered to an AM radio audience. So some of your stuff might not be able to get read on the air, unfortunately, because some of our listeners will have kids in the car. You understand. A lot of you had kids or have kids that you probably don't want hearing some of the things that get said in the live chat. But let's get in. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Mr. Behavior, Tweets by Brit, KTZed, the No Gimmicks Podcast, the PJ Patriot Podcast. Go check out all that great programming, because it's a group of people who are dedicated to bringing you news by the common man for the common man. So it's a great time with all of them. KTZed just hosting our own Quest Fanning last night, talking about one Joseph Buttafuoco over on the YouTube side. An interesting story. I was just a little bit young for that story when it came out, but it was kind of interesting to see and hear all the Long Island accents and everybody talking about stuff that, you know, New Yorkers say it only happens in the trailer parks. But it's kind of fun, and it's like this kind of stuff I think was the precursor to the Jerry Springer Show, really honestly, because they realized they could go all act like complete trash on TV and get a bunch of ratings. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's not. But with that, let's get into the news. Let's get started looking in at the Dow for the morning. I kind of liked seeing what the Dow did yesterday, because it struggled throughout the day. It fell down. Excuse me. It fell down. It came back up and it fell back down again. But in the process of doing so, it looked like it was actually going to win at the end of the day yesterday. And then just right at the very end of the day, it dropped like a stone. And right now we're actually flirting with dropping below the 30,000 point line again, because the futures are looking down as well. We might get down to lows like we saw back in June. Like, see lower than that. I would honestly like to see what happens right now if the Dow dumps below 10 grand. Even if it's just for a moment and it jumps right back up, I want to see what happens if it hits that 9,999 mark. And so many people, when I say that on Twitter, are like, you don't really want to see that. Yeah, I do. No, see, sir, you're projecting. You don't want to see that. I, with a pantry full of canned meats, canned vegetables, and enough broth to still make it flavorful, will be perfectly fine to sit there and watch that. And to sit back and bring on the apocalypse that happens afterwards. But after all these big investors are done killing themselves, think of what the property values are going to do. I'll be able to buy land for pennies on the dollar. I'm joking, of course. We don't want to see anybody do any self-harm. That's the reason I sat in this chair for 24 hours last year. We don't want to see any of that, but I do kind of want to see what would happen with the economy if it just dipped that way for once, if we actually admitted that there's a problem. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But we will see what happens with that and where that goes. Looking in at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been on a fairly steady decline today. Looks like they did try to come back and rally a little bit. About 5 o'clock this morning, local time. But after that, just kind of fell off, down to $18,937 US dollars and 50 US cents. That is down $462 US dollars and 40 US cents. 2.38% on the day. Looking at the 5-day, it does look like there was a rally that was attempted after yesterday's drop-off, and it fell off again. It attempted to rally again and just fell off throughout the day here today. So that's what's happening in the Bitcoin. On the 5-day, it's down 2.47% or 480. So even with the wild swings, it's still somewhat steady throughout the 5-day. It's steady on a really, really low number compared to what we were seeing in 2019, 2020, and even into 2021. But that's what we see on a crypto like that. Let's just look at the year to date to see where we are compared to there. On the year to date, our high looks like it was right around January. It was at 47,733. And about the middle, or probably, no, the end of March, 46,990. So 47,454. So close to 50. Bringing it back out a year, that's where we saw our big euro out from the election run on it up to 61,000, up to 67,000, I think, is where we hit the peak. Apologize for the clearing of the throat. That sneezing fit that I had right before we went live really took its toll on me, but yeah, that's what we see coming out of our Bitcoin here. Looking at fuel, it does look like the low price leader, the 289, did go away in Stoughton. That's come off the list, but so did some of the big ones here. The average price in Madison right now is at 318, and that is in Madison proper. I do want to point out the fact that I did go to Dane County, and now do keep in mind the surrounding communities are not Madison, and I do believe that some of what we're seeing here with these super low prices are, shall we say, capital city-itis. Whereas around the capital, around where all the political people are paying attention, yes, of course it's going to look lower because, hey, look, there's no problem here. Look how low the gas is. But even if you just get a little, in the same county, if you get just a little bit outside of town, you start to see the 331s, the 335s, etc. Going out to the north side towards Windsor, DeForest, etc., you're already at 331. Down here, we're in the mid-30s again. I think 338 is what I put gas in for last night. So, some stuff to watch, some stuff to see with that. And let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow futures tumble. Dow set to break June lows. Tesla holdouts buckle as yields soar. From Ed Carson. Dow futures fell sharply Friday morning, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq. As the post-Fed sell-off continues, the Dow is on track to undercut its June lows. The stock market closed lower on Thursday, with resilient growth leaders selling off as the Treasury yield skyrocketed. Tesla, Celsius Holdings, Shockwave Medical, Enphase Energy, and On Semiconductor are 5 holdout stocks that are now coming under heavy pressure. Hey, look, here's an article. How to lose $75,000 worth of 9.62 Treasury bonds. Or, no, I'm sorry, how to lock in, not how to lose. When he was lighting up the cigar with the dollar bill, I thought he was burning his money. So I thought it was how to lose. The stocks haven't broken down yet. It's possible the recent actions will end up being bullish shakeouts and a test of key support. But anyone who bought these names on the prior couple sessions is sitting on a decent losses, with a risk that these holdouts will break down in the coming days. Celsius Holdings and Shockwave Medical are on the IBD leaderboard watch list. Tesla stock, Celsius, Shockwave, Enphase Energy are all on the IBD 50. Enphase and onsemi are on the IBD Big Cap 20. On the earnings, FedEx released its first official first quarter results during Thursday's session after last week's announcement of disastrous preliminary figures and pulling guidance amid global economic weakness. On Thursday, FedEx will announce higher package rates and announce cost-cutting measures to save $2.2 billion to $2.27 billion in fiscal 2023. The shipping giant stuck with fiscal 2025 EPS and sales targets. Great. So it's going to be more expensive to have your package kicked around like the opening scene of Ace Ventura. FedEx rebounded, edge up 0.8% to 154.41 on Thursday after hitting a fresh 2-year low on intraday. Costco reported earnings late on Thursday. Costco earnings and sales narrowly topped fiscal fourth quarter views. The warehouse giant said there are no plans to hike membership fees right now, despite some speculation that an announcement could come on Thursday. Most of Costco's profit comes from membership fees. Costco fell modestly early Friday. Shares dipped 1.2 to 487.17 in Thursday's session, hitting 2 months lows. On the futures, Dow futures declined 1.1% versus fair value. The S&P fell 1.2%. The Nasdaq slumped 1.2%. Futures are signaling the Dow will undercut its June lows. The S&P and the Nasdaq are racing toward these lows, but they aren't quite there. The 10-year yield leapt 7 basis points to 3.78, which would be a 12-year high, but that's off morning highs of 3.82%. Look, I remind you again, When inflation started to climb last year and we started talking about the 10-year Treasury yield, people were being concerned that the Treasury yield was too hot. When we were talking about 1.78%, it's approaching 2, it can't approach 2. That would be terrible. And now we're looking at 3.78 to 3.82% without a GDP to back that up. That is all inflationary. Crude oil futures fell more than 3%. Copper futures tumbled 4%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate to actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that is what we see in our short term right now. It would be interesting to see where the Dow goes with this and how quiet our political leaders are over the fact that retirements are back down again, to the point that my dad sold out of his retirement and put it into a CD and went back to work. We're back to that point once again. And I do have to wonder if this is going to lead to a cyclical sell-off. I wonder if we're going to see another big market crash like we saw in March. Not as fast, in March of 2020 rather. Not as fast, but as deep. Maybe deeper. But we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. And lastly, we have a little bit more finance to talk about here before we get into the unveiling of the new commitment. From the Daily Wire, here's what the Federal Reserve's recent rate hike means for the economy. From Ben Ziesloft. The Federal Reserve raised the federal funds rate 0.75% on Wednesday afternoon, sending the Dow falling more than 500 points. As inflation remains elevated and core inflation, the price level increase for all items except for food and energy continues to rise. The central bank's decision signals that officials are prioritizing a cool down and cost pressures, even with potential declines in economic activity. Officials also announced rate hikes of 0.75% in June and July. The Federal Reserve cited robust employment figures as rationale for the rate hikes, although joblessness could see substantial increases under the aggressive rollback of monetary stimulus. Case Capital Advisors CEO Kenny Polsari said in an interview with the Daily Wire. Expect the unemployment rate to go from 3.7%, where it is right now, to probably approaching 5% before this is over, he remarked. We could see unemployment rate go to 6%. Yeah, I bet you the White House stops bragging about that at that point. That would be very, very difficult considering where we are right now. Full stop, back up for just a moment, and I do want to remind you that it was back in late July when Jerome Powell was coming back and starting to announce that he was going to go for the second 0.75% rate hike at the time, saying that we could either go to 5 to 6% extended period to get inflation back under control, get the economy back under control for unemployment, and it's going to hurt for a long time, or we could go for, and he actually advocated for going 10+% unemployment to get this back under control quickly. That means that 10+% of the American workforce, millions of people, have to go back and sit down and wonder where their next meal is coming from in order to get the fat cat spending coming off Capitol Hill under control, or the inflation that's coming from it at least, to get you out of the market. The people at the Fed, the people on Capitol Hill on both parties, the White House, they don't care about you. They care about whether or not they can continue to spend money the way that they are. And their lackeys in the Federal Reserve are looking for ways to keep you out of the market. Indeed, a number of leading companies across multiple industries, including Meta, Bed Bath & Beyond, Ford, and Goldman Sachs, have announced layoffs this month. Earnings season starts in 2 weeks, the week of October 10th, Polcari added. A lot of these companies that are now going to be faced with these very difficult decisions are going to pre-announce the fact that they're going to miss their numbers, and they're going to talk about restructuring. In this case, restructuring means layoffs. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell announced a terminal federal funds rate, the level at which the rate will rest before the central bank reverses course of 4.6%. There's going to be some pressure coming to consumers and Americans from all kinds of angles, Polsari continued. That's what you should take away from what just happened. To stimulate the economy after the lockdown-induced recession, the Federal Reserve originally pegged near-zero target interest rate and purchased government bonds from the market. The aggressive rollback of the stimulus from monetary policymakers occurs as inflation rises at the fastest rate in 4 decades. Price levels between August 2021 and August 2022 rose 8.3% according to the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, marking a slight moderation from an 8.5% year-over-year increase and a 9.1% year-over-year increase in June. Powell said during a hawkish speech at the central bank's recent symposium in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, officials are willing to bring some pain in their efforts to combat rising price levels and return inflation to long-term target of 2%. Well, unfortunately, for Jerome Powell, for the White House, for Congress, you are going to have to find a way to turn inflation negative at this point to undo what's gone on over 2 years. And again, I remind you, they talk about the 9.1, the 8.3, the 8.5, and these are compounded over already massive amounts of inflation. 6.2, 7.3, 8.1 at this time last year. So, will they tank this out? Will they bring us up to 10%, 6%, 15% unemployment? We don't know. We'll have to sit back, watch, see. One of the things to watch for sure will be coming after January, when we start to wonder where the spending goes, when we see who's in control of Congress, and if they can stop spending at a federal level. So, we will see what happens with that. Let's grab one from the Blaze. Somebody would normally not cite, but when he is saying to pay attention, you actually might want to pay attention, because this is one of the more crooked CEOs in the billionaire class. BlackRock CEO says the crisis in the price of energy is accelerating the investment in green energy, which means profits for him. From Carlos Garcia. The CEO of the BlackRock investment firm said the skyrocketing energy price and the shrinking green premium and causing more investment to flow into green energy sources. Larry Fink was being interviewed by former President Bill Clinton as part of the Clinton Global Initiative. Those are some scary words right there. When he made the comments in defense of ESG environmental scoring. Because of the rise in energy prices, we're certainly seeing the green premium shrink quite considerably, said Fink. And so the amount of investment dollars are going into decarbonization technologies is accelerating, and they're accelerating very rapidly, he added. ESG, which stands for a score rating environmental, social, and corporate governance values of the left, has been used to pressure companies to serve a green energy agenda. Among the most vocal of the critics of ESG implementation is Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Clinton praised Fink for being among the foremost promoters of ESG in order to reconstitute society. Despite admitting that ESG is worsening the energy crisis, Fink went on to say that the crisis is causing instability across the world. In the next 7 months, we're in a transition, said Fink. And it's not going to be a pretty transition. We have food insecurity worldwide, which is going to be creating more elevated crises. We have not yet seen all the increases we should expect to see in food. We have imbalances in energy right now in the short term, he added. Excuse me. And on top of that, we have the European government, the UK government, and the US government doing a quite large amount of fiscal stimulus at a time we're seeing record inflation, Fink added. He went on to say that there's a lack of hope in the world right now and a growing fear because of economic instability. So, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what's happening here and what happened the last time we had an energy crisis the way that this was, which, adjusted for inflation, we did see gas prices higher, finally, than we did in 2008, adjusted for inflation once again. But one of the things that I did notice when we came down, when we started to see what was happening with gas prices and with energy in general. Number one, we might get to a point where millennials start to look and take in the idea of home canning. like our baby boomer and silent generation parents and grandparents did during the Great Depression and the years that followed, including down into the 70s as well, when we started to go into recessionary forms that way. That's one of the things we actually might see as we come off of this, but as far as the green energy side of things goes, yes, I think that's absolutely possible, because when you do put the squeeze on people artificially by limiting the amount of fuel that's out there, people go out and find ways to save money, save a mile per gallon. And, well, unfortunately, they do turn to electric vehicles as well, which sometimes come out to be the same or more expensive in the long run, depending on the price of electricity per unit in your particular area. One of the things to watch with that too is, what did we start to see back during the first fuel price crunch? And I'm talking all the way back in the 70s. The big boat cars of the 60s and early 70s started to disappear off the road. It was a big point in the plot of the first season of the 70s show. Red decided to bestow the Vista Cruiser, the big block Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, to his son Eric, while he and his wife started to ride around in a 4-cylinder Toyota that, at the time, even with a carburetor, probably got 50 to 60 miles per gallon in the 70s. So Eric, with really no bills other than having to go pay for his gas, got in the Vista Cruiser and drove around at 4 miles per gallon with a 455. And Red and Kitty were saving, scrimping, and pinching pennies after the factory shut down in the Toyota. That's what we saw off the first one. And we saw a lot more of that. Maybe not as much. I remember some of the K cars of the early 80s. And some of the new imports that were coming in for the early 80s too. We started to see a lot of that. Because on top of, even when the gas prices started to come back down or level off as they did in the early 80s, people started looking and saying, hey, I don't really need this gigantic full-framed boat to ride around in. Yeah, it would be nice, but I don't need this gigantic vehicle to ride around in. And we started to see the Omni, the Citation, the Escort, and things like that. Fast forward, 08, the second fuel crunch. What do we start to see? Because a lot of people already have these little K-car, frameless, front-wheel drive numbers, either in V6 or inline 4. And the little inline 4 pocket rocket, too, actually stayed. It had staying power throughout the 80s and 90s, but we started to see people trying to pinch even more pennies out of this, and in comes the Prius, which had actually already been introduced prior to the gas crunch. But it got a big update and it became really popular. You started to see a lot of them around. And after that, a wave of hybrids started to clutter up the roads. Even hybrid vehicles, hybrid pickup trucks, and GM, Ford, both started experimenting with start-stop technologies and other ways to pinch even more pennies out of every gallon of fuel that you had. That's where we started to see. And I will admit that the EcoBoost didn't start up until long after the fuel crunch was over, but the innovation that came from trying to squeeze an extra mile per gallon out of every vehicle on the road, that's what started us down the road, getting to and bringing us to where the EcoBoost was. It's not something I would ever own, but it does hold its own among its Ford owner family. And now, we sit it here and we look at another gas crunch. $5 a gallon gas, natural average, briefly, with the threats of going to 6 or 7, depending on how the heating season goes this year. What do we keep hearing about? Electric vehicle this, electric vehicle that. Hey, let's all get an electric vehicle. We'll save on gas. We don't have to worry about what the price does at the pump. Never mind what the charger is going to cost if the electricity spikes, or what's going to do to the electric bill in our houses, or apartments, or wherever we live. Let's just go get that electric vehicle. Especially with some of them going and living at home and getting the electric vehicle. Oh, no, I don't have to worry about that. Mommy and Daddy pay for the electric bill. I'm just going to plug in my hybrid. So, a few things that are coming with that. a few things to see. As far as the ESG goes, that is a social credit score, of course. China style. So that's what we see for that. More on energy. And I think, I got one more here before we start talking about the political side of things after this. Germany has nationalized the country's biggest gas importer, Uniper. That's funny. That's always a sign you're doing well, when the government goes into private industry and says, hey, you're mine now. That's usually a sign that things are going well for that country. From Frank Jordan's. The German government said Wednesday that it has agreed to nationalize the country's biggest natural gas importer, Uniper, expanding state intervention in the industry to prevent an energy shortage resulting from Russia's war in the Ukraine. The deal with Uniper builds on a rescue package agreed to in July and features a capital increase of 8 billion euros that Germany will finance as part of the agreement. The government will gain 99% stake in the energy supplier, which until now was controlled by Finland-based Fortum. The Finnish government has the biggest stake in Fortum. Economy Minister Robert Habeck said the deal was necessary because of the significance that Uniper plays in the German gas market. It still needs to be approved by the European Commission, but the European Union's executive arm. Uniper supplies about 40% of all gas and customers in Germany. Before the war, bought about half the gas from Russia. Excuse me. Allergy season's here again. The company's losses have mounted as Russia has reduced natural gas supplies to European countries supporting Ukraine. The cuts have contributed to high prices for the fuel needed to heat homes, generate electricity, and power factories, raising the fears of business closures, rationing, and a recession as the weather turns cold. Uniper has been forced to buy gas at a far higher price on the market to fulfill its supply contracts. European countries have scrambled to counter the price spiral and prioritize securing their energy supplies for the winter, including by filling their natural gas storage. Just last week, Germany also moved to take control of the 3 Russian-owned oil refineries before an embargo on Russian oil takes effect next year. Habeck noted that Germany has managed to fill its gas storage facilities to over 90% capacity in preparation for the winter heating season, despite Russia halting gas deliveries through the Nord Stream 1. Wholesale prices for gas have almost halved since the summer, he said. This means as a whole, we have coped quite well with the situation, Habeck said, but for Uniper, the situation has become significantly more dramatic and significantly worse. Gas prices are still at a historically high level, citing the importance of Uniper for the German gas market. Habeck said the government had chosen to nationalize the company to ensure security of supply for Germany. Uniper shares were down by a third on the Frankfurt Exchange on Wednesday compared with the previous day. So, that's typically, like I said, a symbol that everything is going fantastically. Alright, and the last one, before we get into the actual political side of things, California seeks to ban the sale of diesel commercial trucks in an effort to fight pollution and climate change. From Luis Casiano. California regulators could ban the sale of diesel commercial trucks by 2040 as the state seeks to phase out gas-powered vehicles in the coming decades in an effort to combat climate change. The California Air Resources Board staff is proposing a measure that would require medium and heavy-duty trucks entering ports and rail yards must be zero emissions by 2035, and that state and local government fleets do so by 2027, the LA Times reported. It would be the next significant step in accelerating towards a zero-emission transportation system, as well as a more equitable future in California, the proposal said. The board is expected to consider it on October 27th. Man, is California just trying to shut themselves down completely at this point? The proposal follows a board vote in August that would halt the sale of gas-powered cars by 2035 in an effort to fight climate change. There's no infrastructure to support this, Chris Shimoda, vice president of the California Trucking Association, told the paper. The phasing out of gas vehicles would put pressure on state leaders to move quickly to prepare for the millions of electric vehicles that would travel on the state's roadways without much interruption. In addition, the proposal would change how American trucking industry does business. The diesel truck is known to be cheap, easy to run, durable, and able to carry tons of cargo, the report said. Which it is. Now, As far as California's ban on things, first off, the gas car by 2030. That is a lofty goal. To ban the sale of all gasoline-powered vehicles by 2030 is a very, very lofty goal, but it's feasible. Let's use that word. Part of the reason it's feasible is because we already have electric vehicles on the commercial market for people to buy. They're wicked expensive, and California's absolutely, almost positively going to have a big markup for them coming in as well, because you're a captive audience at that point. But they do exist. They're commercially available. They're on the road. You see them probably every day. There's a house that I drive by every day that has a Tesla, and I see it driving on the road, I think 3 or 4 times a week. On my way to work, I see a guy with a white Tesla. It's a Model 3. But see, they're there. Now, where the theoretical commercial vehicle, the electric commercial vehicle, is out there, they're building them, they're building more hybrids, and most of the companies actually have a plan to roll out an electric vehicle somewhere. When they're making a proposal like this, that technology does not technically exist yet in a commercial setting. It's there, but it's never been out on the road. It's never been tested. And you're already coming out to try to make proposals like this. Are you out of your mind? Now, as far as the purchase and registration, I don't know if they would go the same route as Massachusetts did, and this actually goes for the gas cars too. Or if it does sound like they're going to go even further than this and not allow anything with an internal combustion engine to be in the state at all. Enter the ports, enter the factories, enter anything. If they go the Massachusetts route, you can still go over to Arizona and buy a diesel commercial truck. Or, your big Dodge Ram or your F-350 with a 6.7. You can still go over to the other states and buy them. And you can register them in California. You just can't purchase the vehicle. And I've seen, even in Mass, there was no sale of new diesel vehicles at the dealer, and I think used as well at the dealer. The dealers for the diesel vehicles, the commercial vehicles, like I'd gone and applied out at the Mac dealer in one of the cities around where I lived. Did not wind up getting that job, but I had applied there, where they weren't selling any vehicles. You actually had to go down to like Rhode Island or out to Connecticut to buy the vehicle, but they did the sales and service for it. I'm sorry, not the sales, they did the service for it. You could buy the parts, you could bring the truck in and get its oil changed, get anything fixed on it, anything done under warranty. You just couldn't buy the vehicle there, which seems like a bad business model. I believe, and I actually haven't been out there since I graduated from college, so I cannot say this for sure, but I believe they have lifted that ban since then. And I've told the story on the show before about a girl that I was friends with at my second job when I was working at a grocery store, who had a slight obsession with TDI Volkswagen and diesel. And again, it was her brothers had built up Volkswagen engines, diesel engines. They were experts in TDI. She had a Beetle Bug that sounded like a Ram 2500 with all the toys on it. Like, she started the thing up, and you would have swore that it was a 3/4 ton Dodge sitting over there with that inline with the common rail system on it. It made the same whining sound off the turbo. The wastegate sounded the same. It was just a little teeny tiny Beetle that had a line of black smoke coming out behind it when she laid on it. But it sounds more like, yeah, they're going to block everything coming out of there, and you can't come in unless you have an EV. At a point where, again, the technology is out there. I know most of the manufacturers are coming out with an electric truck engine, but it's never been put to the test. There are no drivers out there that are running them right now. It's not an option for anybody yet. So I think that this would tremendously backfire. And again, it's also pointed out the fact that, yeah, they don't have the infrastructure for this yet. They don't have the charging stations for this yet. They barely have enough for their cars. Plus, the grid, they have to shut them down and ask people not to charge their cars. So there's a lot of stuff going with this. There's a lot of stuff moving with this. We will see what happens with this. But we have got to talk about Kevin McCarthy. And I'm actually going to refresh this. We're going to look at some of the video here for McCarthy and what he's doing with this. And I have to go take care of the fact that, well, it's allergy season. So let's listen to what ABC has to say, and then we'll read some of the article as well. And I will be back in just a moment.
Up the next presidential election. Every seat, all 435 seats in the United States House are up for election every 2 years, and about a third of the Senate is up every 2 years. The primaries are how both parties choose their strongest one candidate. Each state has its own laws governing the timeline, the process of getting on the ballot, so it means that the primary season begins in March and actually doesn't wrap up until September. It's one of the few times that you have the nation voting on purely local candidates and local issues. You're not talking about electing or re-electing a president. You're talking about House members, you're talking about senators, you're talking about governors, you're talking about state representatives. And it means that the candidates matter, it means that the issues matter even more. The results of the midterms make all the difference to whatever else President Biden wants to do in office. Anything he needs on his legislative agenda has to get through Congress. The problem for Democrats is that history is not on their side. Presidents almost always do poorly in their first midterm election. There's almost no exception to that rule. Losing control makes it near impossible to notch major legislative achievements, and his appointments have to go through the Senate. So that means if there's a judicial vacancy or even a Supreme Court vacancy, he doesn't necessarily get even a hearing for that person unless the party agrees to it. With the Democrats, that's easy. If the Republicans have a firm majority, it's a much different story. And control of Congress by the party out of power means investigations. If Republicans control the House or the Senate, expect to hear a lot about Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, and the business relationships he's had with Russian and Ukrainian entities. Expect to hear a lot about foreign policy, the circumstances around the Afghanistan withdrawal. You're going to see the Congress dig in on almost every element of the Biden agenda. 2024 begins the moment that 2022 ends. You're going to have candidates announced for president probably within a few weeks of the midterm elections, and the results are going to dictate what the field looks like. People are going to be looking for how.
I do have to argue and push back against whoever this little soy boy is at this point. That now 2024 started on January 21st, 2021. That's when 2024 started. But, I mean, I'm listening to this. Oh, well, what's at stake of this? If Biden wants any sort of legislative agenda, it's got to go through Congress, and there's going to be investigations, and expect to hear a lot about the Afghanistan withdrawal and Hunter Biden. You say that like it's a bad thing. Please explain to me why this is such a terrible thing. Why having accountability for things that actually have mattered to people that they talked about is a bad thing. Oh, wait, no, it's because it disaffects Democrats. Of course! It's just going to be the evil Republicans. What is soy boy? But looking in at what's happening with McCarthy from ABC News, McCarthy rolls out House GOP's commitment to America ahead of midterms. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California on Thursday rolled out an agenda that he says the House GOP would follow should it retake control of the chamber after this year's midterms. The plan, dubbed the Commitment to America, marks McCarthy's most concrete attempt to outline a policy agenda to try to persuade voters ahead of the November races in which the GOP is favored, but not guaranteed to flip the House. The proposal seeks to replicate former Republican House Speaker Newt Gingrich's contract with America, an agenda released in '94 when Republicans won control of the House for the first time in decades. McCarthy's blueprint contains 4 overarching goals: creating an economy that's strong, a nation that's safe, a future that's built on freedom, and a government that's accountable. In a video, the minority leader casts the plan as panacea for the country's struggles, arguing the proposal would fix inflation, lower crime, and other issues as he lays the feet of the Democrat majority in Washington. Let's see. Let's look at this. What is this?
You and your family go
Sure enough, we have a video of McCarthy. Let's listen.
When you and your family go shopping, you probably ask yourself, can we afford this? Now more than ever, Americans are struggling just to get by, wondering if...
Well, you probably shouldn't, number one, be talking about the price of food in a convenience store, where everything is usually 20 to 30% higher than it is everywhere else. Maybe you shouldn't do that.
they could even make it. You know what's even worse? The country's struggle goes beyond just the grocery store. Violent crime is at record highs in our streets and neighborhoods. The border has become a national security crisis, with fentanyl killing our fellow citizens. Soaring inflation has shrunk paychecks and sent us into a recession. And our kids have fallen further behind thanks to school closures and lockdowns. The White House and the Democrat majority in Congress control Washington. They're in charge. This is their record. And yet, they want you to give them 2 more years of power. But Republicans have a plan for a new direction, one that'll get our country back on track. It's called the Commitment to America, a plan for an economy that's strong, where you can feed your family and fill up your tank, a nation that's safe, where communities are protected by the police and criminals are prosecuted, a future that's built on freedom, where your children come first and are taught to dream big, and a government that's accountable, where politicians don't get special treatment. We simply cannot afford 2 more years of business as usual in Washington. We need common sense change now. If you agree, join us and tens of millions more across this great country. Because people like you, who work hard, play by the rules, deserve better.
Boy, those are some nice, big, soft, fuzzy words there, Kevin McCarthy. Unfortunately for you, Kevin McCarthy, I know who you really are, and you are yet another moralistic, neoconservative warmonger. Just like the Wyoming representative that we just ousted, the one that you went out to try to oust to try to win favor with it. You're like Ron Johnson, really. And that's one of the problems with Kevin McCarthy is he's like Ron Johnson in the fact that he knows which strings that he can pull, which buttons he can push to keep himself in power no matter what, which train to jump onto. He's kind of caught between a little bit of a rock and a hard place here because he wants to come back and try to unite the warmongering, neoconservative wing of the Republican Party with the MAGA side, because if he can come back and unite them, he winds up as Speaker of the House, which is a scary thought in and of itself. But let's actually look at what ABC is saying about the plan and some of the spin cycle that's on this as well. Let's see. Violent crime is at a record high in our streets and neighborhoods. The border has become a national security crisis with fentanyl killing our fellow citizens. Soaring inflation has shrunk paychecks and sent us into a recession. No lies detected here. And our kids have fallen further behind thanks to school closures and lockdowns. Well, again, one of the important parts of that is to start to get people out of these government schools. Not necessarily, and I do stand in opposition with some of my school choice friends off of the fact that I don't necessarily have as much of a problem with the public school system, except for the fact that right now it has no accountability. I don't have a problem with there being a public school system. But I need them to be forced to compete for my dollars, just like everything else out there that I put money into. They have to compete for my dollars. The businesses, the gas stations, Quick Trip all the way, of course, except for gas, because I don't get as much fuel economy out of Quick Trip gas for whatever reason. I have no idea what that reason is, but for whatever reason, I do not get as much fuel economy out of Quick Trip gas. But I will go into a Quick Trip for literally anything else. The cup that I drink out of is a Quick Trip cup. I wash it out and reuse it every day. I'm cheap like that. But if it falls out and gets run over by my truck or another vehicle that I'm around on a daily basis, I don't have to worry about it either because it was basically free. It was the cost of the contents of the cup is how much that cup cost me. As far as with everything else that we're seeing with this, though, the White House and the Democrat majority in Congress control Washington. They're in charge, and this is their record, he says. And yet, they want you to give them 2 more years in power. But Republicans have a plan for a new direction, one that will get our country back on track. McCarthy will formally roll out the plan at an event in Pennsylvania on Friday with a broad cross-section of House members, including moderates, like retiring John Katko, who voted to impeach former President Trump, and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, a prominent bomb thrower. The proposals largely lean on issues that Republicans believe are advantageous for this cycle, including stubbornly high inflation, concerns over crime, and increases in southern border crossings. While intended to detail what an agenda could look like, the GOP House majority, the plan is light on specifics, including the commitment. In the commitment are platitudes like supporting our troops, exercising peace through strength with our allies, and to counter increasing global threats. Warmongering, of course, recovering lost learning from school closures, and upholding free speech. The proposal also boasts rigorous oversight, though no specific investigatory efforts are laid out. Among the more specific policy suggestions are supporting 200,000 more police officers through recruiting bonuses. Well, Kevin, you lost me. So long, Kevin McCarthy. No, I will see that out because I know that is important to Soccer Mom America. That really is. The crime rate is out of control, and they can't go send their kids on a field trip into Chicago, which I don't know why the hell you would anyway, but they can't send their kids on a field trip like that because of the worry that they have to go back and wonder if the kids are going to come home or not. So while 200,000 more police officers sounds like a bad idea to me, I know that in this nation I am in the vast, vast majority on that. Alright, let's read what the Daily Wire has to say on this. McCarthy unveils new commitment to America agenda the GOP will pursue if they retake the House. Let's see. Last year, Republicans' House retreat in Orlando, McCarthy outlined the formation of 7 task forces, including jobs and economy, future of American freedoms, China task force, American security, big tech censorship and data, healthy futures and energy, and climate and conservation. The task forces have since held dozens of roundtable events, member meetings and briefings with policy experts and stakeholders, hosted town halls across the country, talking with constituents, and have made policy proposals on a rolling basis. At this year's House retreat in Ponte Vedra, McCarthy announced that Republicans would introduce a new version of former House Speaker Newt Gingrich's contract with America this fall. Under the first theme, Economy That's Strong, Republicans outlined the following. Fight inflation and lower the cost of living. Curb wasteful government spending that's raising the price of groceries, gas, cars, housing, and growing our national debt. Increase take-home pay, create good-paying jobs, and bring stability to the economy through pro-growth tax and deregulatory policies. Energy independent. That's going to actually probably be the first plank of this is energy independence. Because the lower you pay for gas, the lower you pay for everything else. Maximize the production of reliable, cleaner American-made energy and cut the permitting process time in half to reduce reliance on foreign countries. Strengthen the supply chain and end dependence on China. Move supply chains away from China, expand U.S. manufacturing, and enhance America's economic competitiveness and cyber resiliency. They also went on to do secure the border, combat illegal immigration, reduce crime and protect public safety, defend America's national security, make sure every student can succeed and give parents a voice, achieve longer, healthier lives for Americans, confront big tech and demand fairness, preserve our constitutional freedoms, hold Washington accountable, and restore the people's voice. So, that's what we see outlined off of this. However, there's a spin. There is so much spin in this thread, Kenmore would be jealous. So, let's have a look and see what it is that they have to say. Henry Connolly tweets out, "Oops! Looks like GOP leader McCarthy fumbled his agenda rollout by accidentally posting the webpage of House GOP's extreme MAGA commitment to America, then scrambled the password to protect the website again. But not before we got the screenshots." To view this protected post, enter the password below. Alright. Screenshots that reveal House GOP's commitment is doubling down on extreme MAGA agenda. What's the downside of this argument, Connolly? Alright, the House GOP is already on record on how they intend to implement their extreme plans for federal law to criminalize abortion in all 50 states. Here's a screenshot. Protect the lives of unborn children and their mothers. 166 House R's have co-sponsored the Life Begins at Conception bill to criminalize all abortion after the moment of fertilization. 166 does not make a majority, my friend. This is a states' rights issue, and if our representatives stray away from that, we hold them accountable. But he highlights this, like this is a big problem. Protect the lives of unborn children. The extreme MAGA commitment promises to repeal the lower drug prices Democrats delivered for America's seniors on Medicare. And 158 out of 212 House R's, including Whip Scalise and Chair Stefanik, have called for gutting Social Security and Medicare in the Republican study budget. I'm going to need the documentation for that one, because when the senator from Florida, I can't think of his name right now, Rick Scott, brought this out, he got laughed at. Because Democrats and Republicans both use Social Security as their personal piggy bank. But his highlight off of this one here is, the Democrats' drug takeover scheme could lead to 135 fewer life-saving treatments and cures. Well, when you take away funding and financial incentive for people to go find cures, you take away the initiative to go back out and make the cures. House GOP's commitment promises to help insert extreme MAGA allies and disrupt polling places, to help MAGA politicians invent a basis to overturn the results of election, and give MAGA state legislatures absolute power to change election rules on their whim. No, the Constitution does that. It also gives the ability of your progressive havens like New York and California to change them on a whim too, by the way. And his highlights for this: increase accountability in the election process through voter ID, accurate voter rolls, and observer access, which they can actually implement on a federal level. There's a crisis among American voters who have highlighted lost faith in our elections. The election integrity by ensuring the process is fair, secure, and respects state sovereignty. You know, the Constitution. It's interesting the things that he's highlighting, because again, as I mentioned, there is so much. Kenmore would be jealous of this. There's so much spin. Whirlpool is currently having their developers read this thread and see if they can harness this kind of spin for the next generation of washing machines. The extreme MAGA attack on democracy is now an explicit pillar of the House GOP agenda. Here, the GOP members' toolkit for commitment to America explicitly and baselessly attacks the legitimacy of legally cast ballots, Hong Kong, fanning suspicion about early voting. Early voting in Georgia in 2022 came in at nearly triple Georgia's 2018 level. Hong Kong. Number 2, ensure safe and fair elections through voter ID, accurate voter rolls, and observer access. Once again, 3 things that the House has no say over. Mr. Connolly, which you're blue checked. Why are you blue checked? Who are you? Oh, you're the comms director for Speaker Pelosi. See, Mr. Connolly, as the comms director for the Speaker of the House, maybe you should read the Constitution that your boss has sworn an oath to uphold. No wonder GOP leader wants Marjorie Taylor Greene standing front and center when he commits to the House Republicans to such a devastating, extreme MAGA agenda. More threats to repeal hugely popular prescription drug price savings from the Inflation Production Act inside the Commitment to America members' toolkit. The extreme MAGA House GOP plans both increasing seniors' drug costs and slashing their Medicare benefits. Democrat socialist drug takeover could lead to 135 fewer drugs and cures. Before you roll this out, McCarthy, I would take that word out of this, because that is, while true, extremely contentious. Oh, he's going back and doing the same thing over again at this point, because he's got nothing new. Look at the soy in this thing, too. That is a diet high in vegan meat replacements. Right there. So, that's what they have coming out. And that's what they're using to come back out and try to push it away. Let's talk about Stacey Abrams. Vegan Harry Potter, I like that. Hey, wait a second. Hold on a second. Is this stream not about Jimmy? I looked over in the chat and I saw something off this. I didn't know what was going on with the stream. I thought the stream was all about Jimmy. When did that happen? Alright, Stacey Abrams faces backlash for claiming 6 weeks fetal heartbeat is manufactured sound. Progressive Democrat Stacey Abrams is facing a fierce backlash after a clip surfaced of her declaring that there's no such thing as a fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks, insisting that just a manufactured sound designed to control women's bodies. That's right. The danger in this country is not coming from big tech. It's not coming from big pharma. It is coming from big ultrasound machine. We gotta listen to this one. We gotta listen to this one. Which means I gotta turn the music out.
There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her. There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her.
This is actually the talking point too, by the way. Is this the same clip or is this... Yeah, that's the same clip. That's the same 12-second clip. That is their talking point right there. That right there should be enough. And again, I'm not going to hang the party. There's plenty of other things to hang the party on. I'm not going to condemn the party over the speech of one particularly unlikable progressive Democrat. But after we saw the big spin cycle off of this little soy boy here, one of the things that I have to say with that is, well, it might not be the whole party. I think there's a lot of them. All right. There's no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks, the Peach State gubernatorial candidate said in an event in Atlanta on Tuesday. It's a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body. Abrams' jaw-dropping remarks were shared on Twitter by the Republican National Committee late on Wednesday, and the reaction against her was swift. Good. Hearing my baby's heartbeats at 6 weeks is hands down one of the most exciting, liberating, and most beautiful moments of my entire life. Hands down, Meghan McCain tweeted. And that's coming from Meghan McCain, whose genetic makeup is 50% pure evil. And she still has the good sense to say that that's a liberating, beautiful moment of her entire life. Stacey Abrams is a very sick person to say this and somehow accuse doctors of faking fetal heartbeats. Full stop. The daughter of the late senator seethed. And once again, this is coming from somebody who is 50% pure evil. And could still recognize this. What does that say about Stacey Abrams? Dr. Kelly Ward, chairwoman of the Arizona GOP, also chimed in saying, this woman not only again proves that she's a total idiot or a liar or both, but also shows how gullible her supporters are. Well, we knew that already. Sports commentator Michelle Tafoya also tweeted, so, Stacey Abrams, when my male doctors told me they could no longer hear my baby's heartbeat as I lost pregnancy after pregnancy, was that fake too? Did they manufacture the absence of my baby's heartbeat in order to force me to terminate pregnancy? A spokesman for Abrams' campaign said she supports the guidelines established in Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which justices found a fetus was viable at about 23 weeks. Stacey Abrams has already stated her support for limits in line with Roe and Casey, and doctors have been clear that the so-called heartbeat law is not medically accurate, Alex Floyd said in a statement to The Post. A fetal heartbeat can be detected by vaginal ultrasound at between 5.5 and 6.5 weeks when the fetal pulse can be seen, according to the American Pregnancy Association. The fetal pulse is the first visible sign of a developing embryo. The fetal pole may be seen at a crown rump length, CRL, of 2 to 4 millimeters, and the heartbeat may be seen as a regular flutter when the CRL has reached 5 millimeters, the organization explains. At 6 to 7 weeks, the baby's heart continues to grow and now beats at a regular rhythm. Mount Sinai also explains this can also be seen by vaginal ultrasound. During an interview on ABC's The View last week, Abrams responded to GOP Senator Lindsey Graham's proposal to create a national standard outlawing abortion after 15 weeks. She says she supports the procedure until the time of birth. Yeah, that's a 6-minute clip. If I didn't know that this was going to be in the article, I actually would have queued it up, but because that's a 6-minute clip, I'm not going to. I'm going to put a pin in this, though, and we will go and talk. Well, I'll put the video in the Discord, and probably we'll talk about it there. I don't know if we'll talk about it on Monday or not, because the story might be stale at that point. They might have found, the mainstream media might have found a new, look over here, look at Trump story. Kind of like our friend Jimmy tried to do at the beginning of this. Have you ever seen a former president in so much legal trouble? Let's see. Lindsey Graham's proposal to create a national standard outlawing abortion after 15 weeks, saying that she supports the procedure until the time of birth. Because of course she does. I believe that abortion is a medical decision, not a political decision, she said. And arbitrary, politically defined timelines are deeply problematic because they ignore the reality of medical and physiological issues. For example, a 6-week ban tells a woman they have to make a reproductive choice before they know they're pregnant. I have sex? Did I forget my pill? Did I tell the guy it was okay that he didn't use a rubber? I might be pregnant. The Democrat narrowly lost to Kemp in 2018. In 2019, Kemp signed off on legislation banning abortion at about 6 weeks of pregnancy, which then became law after the Supreme Court overturned Roe in June. Abrams hasn't directly addressed what she would do with the law if elected, but she told CNN in an interview that protecting abortion rights is a primary concern. And, well, I do have to come out and admit the fact that I did not come up with the big ultrasound thing, and we saw this in the other video. Liberty Anders, Maggie Anders over on Twitter, who is I think she's still a high-up member in YAF. Maybe not, because I know that they had the problem with YAF, and I think that affected her, so maybe she's not anymore. I haven't talked to Maggie since she dropped out of the group chat that we were in together. But Maggie says, big ultrasound machine wants you to think your baby is a living being so they can take control of women's bodies or something. There it is. There's so much evil in the world. It's wicked. Alright, let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Watch. Dem melts after falsely claiming January 6 rioters beat cop to death. From Greg Wilson. A House Democrat insisted Wednesday that a cop was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher by January 6 rioters, even though the claim has long since been debunked. And who is this? The first male member of the squad, Mondaire Jones, out of New York. Mondaire Jones insisted at a House Judiciary Committee meeting that Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick was bludgeoned by Trump supporters, a claim first reported and later corrected by the New York Times, a former newspaper. Jones' initial comment was not caught on video, but Rep. Dan Bishop heard it and reacted. Let's listen. Crap, I almost started watching The View, because that was the YouTube that I had up. I wanted to go mute the music, and I saw The View was still queued up, and I almost hit play on that instead. Nobody wants to hear that.
I mean, I wasn't listening. We were conversing a bit. But did I hear, and I think, did you say that a police officer was bludgeoned to death by the crowd at the January 6 riots?
I said a police officer was bludgeoned to death. I did not say at the hands of whom, Mr. Bishop.
Just who are you referring to, if you don't mind saying?
I can get that information for you in a few minutes.
Well, I just want to make sure, because
are you denying that that at least one Capitol Police officer was murdered in the midst of what happened on January 6th?
Yeah, I think I am denying. I mean, here's what I understood, that there were reports early on that Sicknick was struck with a fire extinguisher, and that subsequently was debunked as false. He died of natural causes that were not connected to the event. Are we talking about the same person, Sicknick, or are we talking about somebody else? Seriously, I mean,
it's a genuine question, because the medical examiner, the U.S. Capitol Police put out a report agreeing with the medical examiner finding the USCP officer Brian Sicknick died of natural
Bishop,
causes.
well, just an initial thought, and I know that Mr. Roy, you too are an attorney. Mr. Bishop speaks often about how brilliant of an attorney he is. We're talking about but-for causation of Officer Sicknick's death. And so I would hope that you would at least concede, at a minimum, that Mr. Sicknick died as a result of what happened on January 6th. And I'm disappointed if you would suggest otherwise, sir.
Well, I don't think that's correct either, but was he bludgeoned to death? Is that, because I think Ms. Demings was even looking at, we were sotto voce between me and her saying he was. I'm sincere as I can be. My understanding is that was debunked, and Mr. Roy just read the medical examiner's information. Do you guys contend that he was bludgeoned to death?
I contend that 138 Capitol and D.C. police officers were injured, and that multiple Capitol police officers died as a direct result of what happened on January 6th. And I hope that you...
It's your time. You don't have to answer.
I hope you can see how one would question the sincerity of such a minute point in the midst of the gravity of everything else.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yeah.
Would the gentlelady yield?
He was bludgeoned to death. No, he wasn't. No, well, you can't deny the fact that he had stress and, well, he died of natural causes. But you can't deny. What a maroon. All right, what else do we have? The Disclose Act, which does not disclose actually anything, by the way. I read through the bill last night. I wanted to make sure that there was not something that I missed off of this. So we're going to sit in and I'm going to highlight a couple of different points off of this. There is some shady crap in this bill. But of course, it got a nice title and it got a nice description. Oh, well, this bill is going to get dark money out of politics. It's going to make all these evil Republicans show their donors. Well, no, it actually doesn't do that. Reading from Insider. Republican senators vote to block a bill requiring dark money groups to disclose their donors. I don't want to see them doxxed. That's not even the worst part of what's in this bill, by the way. So, and by the way, we are coming up to the close of the show here, so if you guys do want to get some stuff put on right at the end of the show, now is the time to do so. Reminder, I have the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat over here. Right here. They'll all get read on the air because we've got a small enough crowd and a small enough show that I can individually say thank you to everybody. I do hope to grow at some point, but I do know that we're probably going to have to cut this out if we start to get to being a bigger show. And that makes me actually a little bit sad, because I like doing this. You guys have supported me from the beginning, and I like to come in and say thank you to those of you who come here every day. Plus, we'll look over some of your live chat over here in the live chat bot. And honestly, and I said this at the top of the show, we do have to temper it a little bit because we are working against an AM radio audience. But if you are tempered enough, then we'll get it read on the air. And if it's not tempered enough, I'll laugh about it on the air and say, I can't read that on the air. And yeah, we do both of those usually every week. So that will be coming up in just a few minutes. Let's talk about what's happening with the Disclose Act. Republican senator vote to block a bill requiring dark money groups to disclose their donors. I don't want to see them doxxed, said Brian Metzger and Oma Sadiq. Republican senators on Thursday voted to block a bill that would have required so-called dark money groups to disclose their donors, hindering Democrats' efforts to increase transparency in elections. The democracy is strengthened by casting light on spending in elections, or Disclosed Act, targets political nonprofit groups and super PACs, requiring them to reveal donors who have contributed more than $10,000 during an election cycle. The measure also applies to groups that spend money on ads supporting or opposing judicial nominees. The bill failed to advance as 49 Republicans voted against it. Republican Senator Mike Crapo of Idaho did not vote. Senate Majority Leader Chuck U. Schumer first introduced the bill in 2010, and Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island has reintroduced it in every Congress since, after the landmark 2010 Citizens United versus FEC Supreme Court decision allowed outside groups to spend unlimited sums of money on elections. Nonprofits are not legally obligated to disclose their donors. Super PACs, on the other hand, are subject to federal campaign finance disclosure laws, but their funding often comes from dark money groups. Like Act Blue, by the way. And trust me, there are plenty of provisions in this bill to protect and shield Act Blue. Whitehouse told Insider on Wednesday that he believes the GOP's widespread opposition is a demonstration of the party's dependency on dark money. He said, with an Act Blue link active with his name on it, unfortunately, the Republican Party has become dependent on dark money as a deep-sea diver is on his air hose, said Whitehouse. And so even though my colleagues know the public hates this stuff, they try to respond to that hatred with their own efforts to paint us as a dark money party. they had no choice but to vote against the Disclose Act and protect their dark money donors. He says, with an active Act Blue link with his name on it. This is not the first time Republicans have successfully blocked a bill from reaching the necessary 60 votes to open debate on legislation. It's happened at least 10 times in the past 12 years, including with 2 standalone votes in 2010, 2 in 2012, and as an amendment to the budget in 2015. More recently, a version of the legislation was included in the Democratic-led For the People Act, a sweeping elections and campaign finance bill that Republicans blocked last year. A particularly strong opponent of the bill is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who once compared efforts to disclose dark money groups' donors to the creation of a modern-day Nixonian enemies list. He reiterated his opposition on Wednesday morning, saying the bill would erode the First Amendment, which McConnell doesn't really care about unless it's affecting people who are donating to him. Insider spoke with a handful of Republican senators at the Capitol about their opposition to the bill ahead of the vote. Both Republican Senators Josh Hawley of Missouri and Ted Cruz of Texas invoked the 1958 National Association for the Advancement of Colored People versus Alabama Supreme Court decision, which blocked the state of Alabama, then largely led by segregationist Democrats, from forcing the NAACP's local affiliate to disclose its membership lists, arguing that members had the right to pursue their lawful private interests privately. Racist Democrats wanted to go after the NAACP and persecute their supporters, Cruz said. Democrats have wanted to do this for a long time. So, there are 2 sides to this. Number 1 is the shade and the ability to allow the news media that is controlled. And by the way, it's only corporate media. Like, if I did a criticism or a support of a particular Supreme Court nominee or judicial nominee, they would, if they ever did find the bill, be having a conversation with me about campaign finance. But it is, as terms of bills go, especially ones with a lot of pork in them, it is actually a relatively short bill. It's probably a 20-minute read. But this is Senate 443 to amend the Federal Elections Campaign Act of 1971 to provide for an additional disclosure requirements for corporations, labor organizations, super PACs, and other entities for other purposes. This act may be cited as the Democracy is Strengthened by Casting Light on Spending Elections Act of 2021 or the Disclose Act of 2021, even though it is now 2022. So there are a couple things now. Number 1 is clarification of prohibition by participation by foreign nationals in election-related activities. By adding to the end of the following new paragraph, foreign national to direct, dictate, control, or directly or indirectly participate in the decision-making process of any person, including a corporation, labor organization, political committee, or political organization, with regards to such person's federal or non-federal election-related activity, including any decision concerning the making of contributions, donations, expenditures, or disbursements in connection with election for any federal, state, or local office, or any decision concerning the administration of political committee. This is a Russia thing in and of itself. Certification of compliance. Section 319 of Act 52 U.S.C. 30121 is amended by adding the end of the following new subsection: certification of compliance required prior to carrying out activity. Prior to the making in connection with an election for federal office of any contribution, donation, expenditure, independent expenditure, or disbursement for an electioneering communication by a corporation, labor organization, as defined in Section 316B, limited liability corporation or partnership during a year, chief executive officer of the corporation, labor organization, limited liability corporation, or partnership, or if the corporation, labor organization, limited liability corporation, or partnership does not have a chief executive officer, the highest ranking official of the corporation, labor organization, limited liability corporation, or partnership shall file a certification with the commissions under penalty of perjury that a foreign national did not direct, dictate, control, or directly or indirectly participate in the decision-making process relating to such activity in violation of subsection A3 unless the chief executive officer has previously filed such a certification during the calendar year. Let's see. want to move in audit and report and disbursement by foreign nationals. Yes, that's foreign nationals. Foreign nationals. Foreign money. Let's see. Prohibiting the establishment of corporation to conceal election contributions and donations by foreign nationals. Obviously, because they don't want to have it go through a shell corporation. Title 2, reporting of campaign-related disbursements. Disclosure requirements for corporations, labor organizations, and certain other entities. In general, Section 324 of Federal Elections Campaign Act of 71 is amended to read as follows. In general, any organization, covered organization that makes campaign-related disbursements aggregating more than $10,000 in an election reporting cycle shall, not later than 24 hours after each disclosure date, file a statement with the commissions made under penalty of perjury that contains the information described in paragraph 2. In the case of the first statement, filed under the subsection for the period beginning on the first day of the election reporting cycle, or if earlier, the period beginning 1 year before the first such disclosure date and ending in the first such disclosure date, and in the case of any subsequent filed statement, for the period beginning the previous disclosure date and ending on such disclosure date. They have to give the name of the covered organization and the principal place of business. If you're going to donate to a political campaign, in which, by the way, we are going to direct our followers to go back and harass, boycott, and protest you, you have to give us your name and address so we can send people out to picket outside of your building. And by the way, also identifies each beneficial owner by name and current residential street address. So it's not just the company. They want the name and address of the CEO who's allowing this. Gee, I wonder why they would want that. If any beneficial owner exercises control over the entity through another legal entity, such as corporation, identifies each other such legal entity. So it's not only that, it's, okay, we don't want to just protest you and the business that's making the donations. We want to protest everything else that you own, plus the amount. If the covered organization makes campaign-related disbursements using funds other than funds in a segregated bank account and described in subparagraphs E for each payment to the covered organization, the name and addresses of each person who made such a payment during the period covered by the statement, once again, to target and dox the date and the amount of such payment and the aggregate amount of all such payments. Exceptions, and this is, by the way, what brings Act Blue. This is what makes Act Blue exempt to this. Amounts received in ordinary course of business. The requirement to include in a statement filed under paragraph 1 the information described in paragraph 2 shall not apply to amounts received by the covered organization in commercial transactions in the ordinary course of any trade or business conducted by the covered organization in the form of investments, other than investments by the principal shareholder or in a limited liability corporation in the covered organization. For purposes of the subparagraph, amounts received by a covered organization as remittances from an employee to the employee's collective bargaining representative shall be treated as amounts received in commercial transactions in the ordinary course of business conducted by the covered organization. That protects union workers, by the way. Threat of harassment or reprisal, the requirement to include any information relating to the name or address of any person other than the candidate in a statement submitted under paragraph 1 shall apply if the inclusion of the information would subject the person to serious threats, harassment, or reprisals. So this, by the way, in Section A, this does clear Act Blue because their primary business is to redirect funds around to campaigns. It is a slush fund. By the way, if you are donating to Act Blue for a specific candidate, there is a 50-50 shot that your dollars are not going to that specific candidate. They put all of that in a general Act Blue slush fund and redistribute the money around as needed. So if you're supporting a Dem in a safe district and you're watching this program, you'd probably hate watching this program at this point. But if you're putting your money into an Act Blue in a very, very safe blue district, AOC is Act Blue, for instance. If you're donating to AOC's Act Blue in a district that she is 95% likely to get reelected in, then that money is actually going into the slush fund and will probably go to like a Charlie Booker or somebody like that. Charlie Crist, although Charlie Crist doesn't really have a chance, so I don't know that his Act Blue is actually going to get funded. His slush fund's going to get funded out of other things. I think they're going to put this to more contested races. They'll go to Mandela Barnes. That'll be one that they'll go to, because they desperately want to win this race, and probably John Fetterwoman as well. But also, for the labor union, once that money is in the labor union, it's not considered to be a donation from the person at the end. Now it just goes from the general AFL-CIO slush fund into the Democrats' pocket. Alright, I want to talk about judicials for a moment. Let me see if I can find that one, because that was the other one that stood out for me. Federal judicial nomination communication. In general, the term federal judicial nomination and communication means any communications, that is, by means of any paid broadcast, cable or satellite, paid internet or paid digital communication, paid promotion, newspaper, magazine, outdoor advertising facility, mass mailing, telephone bank, telephone messaging effort of more than 500 substantially similar calls or electronic messages within a 30-day period, or any other form of general public political advertising, and that is susceptible to no reasonable interpretation other than promoting, supporting, attacking, or opposing the nomination or Senate confirmation of an individual as a federal judge or justice. Exception. There's an exception, because of course there is. Such terms shall not include any news story, commentary, or editorial distributed through facilities of any broadcasting station or any print, online, or digital newspaper, magazine, publication, or periodical, unless such facilities are owned or controlled by any political party, political committee, or candidate. That shields the Washington Post from writing an op-ed in support of judicial nominee A or against judicial nominee B. That means that the big media companies, and even the little guys too, this actually does protect me as well, we can say whatever we want to influence the Senate or the public opinion on anything. That doesn't matter. But a corporation coming in to donate, to make an advertisement for, that's wrong. That's naughty. Intent not required. A disbursement for an item described in subparagraph A, B, C, D, or E of paragraph 1 shall be treated as a campaign-related disbursement, regardless of the intent of the person making the disbursement. So, even if you donate, even if you're coming out as the CEO of a company and saying, hey, this judicial nominee would tank our ability to make a living, without directly going in to try to say, hey, I want to try to influence this or make this out here, you are in violation of this law. This is a very convoluted law, and for as short as it is, it's worth the read. And it is linked in the Discord. I will link it in the chat as well. And you guys should go through it yourselves. There's a reason that it's getting blocked in its fullest form. So, that is what we see for that. And then, we're up on the clock right now. The stand by every ad is not as bad as some of the other stuff, but it's still worth the read as well. Like I said, I sat up last night while I was organizing show notes and read this entire thing in its entirety. Alright, is there anything else that I want to make sure that I get to yet today? I don't think so. I think we can save everything back out until Monday. So, it's 9:22, which means that it is time for us to go through and see what it is that you guys said, both throughout the week and as well as today. So we got the live chat up here. A little bit of a slow live chat day today. We're all the way back up to the top and don't have a lot going on here, but while we get your commentary in, we will look and see what happened throughout the week this week. So, on Monday, our top chatters were Ron Helton, Quest Fanning, who was on KTZed last night, talking about Buttafuoco. Go and check that out if you haven't already. We had Randy Crush Saga, Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut, who is Jupac Shalom, by the way, over on the Twitch side. He changed his name. KTZed was here, 80s Kid, Arvolt, Vampire Hunter D. 80s Kid rather, was very active in the chat yesterday. Very, very active. Had a lot to talk about, apparently. Tuesday, our top chatters were Ron Helton, A. Gaines P. Well, looks like his dad just got discharged from the hospital, so we hope for a speedy recovery on that. Job for 9, Randy Crush Saga, Harvey McLeod, Arvolt, and Blind Fear. Wednesday brought us Ron Helton, Jake Paul, A. Gaines P. Quest Fanning, Sully Blue joined us from the road, Randy Crush Saga, MK Ultra, Arvolt, and Horatius. And yesterday, look at all those names. We had a busy live chat yesterday. Everybody had to weigh in on what we were talking about yesterday. Look at all that. Look at all those. Let me turn this up to the camera so you can actually see it. Look at all those names right there. Including some people who were not as happy to have me here. But also some, I noted one, Code Dancer. Code Dancer seemed to be democratic, but not like religious democratic. I noted a couple things that he said throughout this. One of them if we want to beat Donald Trump, we have to do it at the ballot box, not through the courts. That is absolutely true. But I know one of the big things is I don't think that he's going to go through the courts. I do think that he is going to. This is an attempt to get him onto the ballot for this year. So that they can conflate every Republican with Donald Trump by getting people to think about him. But no, that was. I hope Code Dancer comes back. I really liked seeing his commentary in here. I really do. Yesterday we had, and this is in order of when you started chatting, because for whatever reason, on the night after the live chat, Restream hasn't aggregated the names in. So I typically have to go through with the list like this and go see what it is you guys are saying by the list. Not necessarily going through and checking and reading who the top chatters were in the Restream side. But yesterday we had Ron Helton, Quest Fanning, Randy Crush Saga, Arvolt 24, 80s Kid, Code Dancer, the above mentioned, Horatius, Tygar 84X, Jenny Tulls Gaming was asking us about the use of meth in New Zealand's army, which I don't have an opinion on because I don't know enough about that, unfortunately. Pedophile, I'm not going to say that the way that's probably supposed to be pronounced, but as he was here, A. Gaines P. and Chilaga 1984. Let's see what we have going on today. Ron Helton is here. Good morning. Job for 9. Good Friday morning. I pray that everyone's having a fantastic Friday. Well, we'll see. It's just starting out for me. Job for 9's getting ready for work. Ron Helton says, will they outlaw the Tonga volcano next? I actually don't know what the Tonga volcano is. I'm sure it's a volcano, but... Oh, and it looks like that's actually getting ready to erupt. Hey, by the way, let's go ahead and put that on the stack for Monday. Volcano eruption in Tonga could warm the Earth temporarily. Oh no, it's global warming! I missed that one somehow in the news. It's an undersea volcano. It looks like it's getting ready to blow. Maybe we'll get a new island out of it. We'll put that on the stack for Monday, unless, of course, the Tonga volcano wipes out all life on Earth. Ron Helton says, I wasn't sure if I would have internet this morning. The ISP had technical problems, and it went down completely before 5 p.m. last night. Came back on after midnight. That's lame. Ron Helton says, wait till they start emptying prisons because they will not have the funds to feed or care for them anymore when this economy craters. Oh, no, 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 my friend. The government will always have plenty of money to house its political enemies. They'll always find money for that. Jimmy McGill, attorney. Is there anyone with as many legal problems as the ex-pres right now? Oh yeah, there's a lot of people with more legal problems than that, because he doesn't really have as many legal problems as they're trying to astroturf us out into believing that he has. It would be hard to point to someone else. No, it wouldn't. Fuck, Joey Buttafuoco. There went the AM radio audience. Joey Buttafuoco has more legal problems than the ex-pres. So you just read news articles live? Yeah, pretty much. And comment on them. Why aren't you paying attention to me? It's always Twitch. And it's always a non-profile picture Twitch, too. Like Ron Helton over on the D-Live side's got the Stop the Drug War. Randy Crush has got his RR symbol, the Random Randy symbol. Jake Paul's got a Twitch. Is that a restream? I don't know what that is, but it's something on there. But it's not the standard just, I am a robot, I just made a new account to go attack political streams and try to get them banned. They hate it when I don't pay attention to them too, by the way. I know they do. That's my favorite one, and I posted that on Twitter too. Does he even read the chat? Is code for I came in here to cause trouble. A Randy Crush Saga is here. Jake Paul's tiny left nut is here. Randy says, remember when they asked people not to charge their EVs in California? That was awesome. Yeah, that was funny. Blind Fear says, no child left behind policy is also hurting children in the long run. Yes. Randy says, Google Quick Trip gas. You're not the only one who's noticed. I have noticed. No, that's something else entirely. Yeah, no, I've noticed that before, that when I go to Quick Trip, I get probably, I would say 50 to 100 miles less out of a full tank. Which is what, I think it might just be E85, because that seems to be what the manufacturer says is what I get, what I lose from going E85 as well, is about 100 miles a tank. So I wonder if that's not what it is or not, but yeah, I never get as good a fuel economy out of Quick Trip gas. I never have. I get the best out of Shell, oddly enough. I got 700 miles out of a tank once on Shell gas. Horatius putting Jimmy in his place, but I don't know if he was even here yet or not. Why do you think the stream is about you and that anyone has to answer your questions? Where does your sense of entitlement come from? Parents? I thought the stream was actually all about Jimmy. What happened? Was I wrong? Randy, you spin me right round, baby, right round. Jake says, definitely looks like a vegan Harry Potter. Randy says, all I know about Jimmy is that he ate the world. Just take some time. In the middle, a little bit of... We're all just synths, confirmed. I thought we were all made of stars. Are we Gen 4 synths? I know Zuckerberg is a Gen 2 synth. Looks just human enough to pass, but you can definitely tell that something's wrong with him. Gaines is here. Jake Paul says, women are just fleshy Gundam suits without the cool gadgets. That's too much for girls to keep up with, says Gaines. Arvolt is here with the Twitch stickers. I did that! Driving to a meeting, can you start over? No, because I have to go and do some work yet today. A lot of athletic work to do. I'm going to be filthy by the end of the day. Gaines says died of natural causes and beaten to death are two different things. Knock me over with a feather. Shady shit in a bill that is their go-to move. Jake Paul says, my favorite portion of the stream, Jimmy reads comments. Gaines says, get out of here, random Dem, not commenting. Just kidding, random. Let's chat. I'll tell you why you're wrong. Yeah, I mean, I know in the past we've talked about maybe bumping some of them that have come in just to cause trouble, but I mean, we've also made some friends along the way too, and some of them, like Pushpins in the Discord, was, and I haven't seen him, I can't remember what his Twitch screen name was, but he was one that came in as a Twitch rabble rouser, as a progressive socialist, and he joined the Discord and stuck around for a little bit because he didn't cause trouble. He actually came in and listened and said, okay, I disagree with you, but I respect your right to say what it is that you have to say, and you know, I'll come in here every once in a while. They're welcome to come in. It's just, we're on an agenda, we're on a time budget, so it is go into the news, do the commentary, and we don't get to all the news every day. That's the reason I don't have a 3-hour show like Stephen Ignoramus does, where I can go in and do the chat and proselytize about Fuentes, and I don't have that. I've got this. Hurry up, get the news in, get the commentary in, and hope we can get to as much of it as we can. You got the caps again. Yeah, so on the Nightbot, by the way, I'll let you guys know how this goes. So I set the Nightbot up because at the time that I was setting it all up, I had a group of white supremacists led by one big cat Kayla, who were coming on every stream, and they spammed caps constantly. Like, everything that they did was in caps. I actually don't know why the YouTube cap doesn't catch. Because Job for 9, and I know she's not spamming, I just know that she keeps her caps lock on. I don't know why it doesn't catch on that one, but it does on the YouTube one, or on the Twitch one rather. But it was spamming of words, caps, and links were the big ones that I put on there. And that, again, when we were talking about that yesterday, it wasn't the fact that it was an Odyssey link, it was the fact that it was an any link. And the link is too, because we get a lot of, like, Jimmy in here who'll come in and demand, like, hey, watch this YouTube video, go check this out. And it kind of interrupts the flow of everything, especially with where they just want you to go and click on a video that usually has a virus embedded in it. But also the link thing, that catches the wanna become, well, they fixed that now, so it doesn't catch them anymore. But that, for a while, that caught the wanna become famous? Buy Primes, followers, and subs on bigfollows.com. The robot caught them and filtered them and timed them out. And even a 5-second timeout on the robot usually dispatches the robot. But yeah, that was the reason that I set it up that way. It's not you. It was mainly for our friends in the skin color supremacy group. Let's see. Gaines says, yeah, he did, now in a facility for physical therapy. He's 77 and a boots on the ground Nambet. Ancient orange exposure caused lifelong health issues, still fighting though. Arvold says, I thought volcanoes' sulfur was actually cooled the atmosphere, so much for science. Brandon says, I swear they never watched TV before. Oh, goody. We've got a video on the Discord. Perfect video for people mad when a streamer doesn't respond. Let me see how long this is. Oh, this is a short one. We might watch this. Oh, it's a YouTube short too. So I gotta figure out then how to get the volume off of this. Alright, looks like that's how I do it. So let's pull that up here. Let's see what it is. I don't understand the YouTube short system because I make long form content. So forgive me if I'm going to boomer out on this while we're trying to figure this out. I don't know why I don't have any volume. Forgive me, I don't understand the YouTube short system. But yeah, that's probably what they're doing out there. Like, oh, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. He's going to pay attention to me and he's going to say something in support of Donald Trump and I'm going to report him. Gaines says, it's good to touch base with Dems and see where they're at. We can put ourselves in an echo chamber sometimes. Yeah, I try not to be. That's part of why I'm on Twitter. It's because I don't want to be in an echo chamber. I like listening to their arguments. I don't like fighting with them anymore. Because they just do the same thing. They go in, they get their crap shoved in, and they go back and run to the little Discord server and go get all their friends to come in and try to dogpile them, and it usually doesn't work. Joffrey and I am special. All right. Bot got me. The comment was about Doomsday Glacier coming to kill you. No, I can still see it on this side. Like, even when they were spamming, the white supremacists were spamming because I was using Restream still at the time. I can... The Nightbot doesn't have the ability to pull things out of the Restream chat screen. So no matter what you put into it, no matter what they bump out of here, I can still see it. Not missing anything on the sound. Okay. Okay, then I did it right then. I don't know. The YouTube short thing, it's just like YouTube trying to get onto the same thing with Reels and TikTok, which to this day I don't understand TikTok. I don't get it. I will come out and be the big enough man to say that I don't get it. Some of you guys seem to like it though. I do watch the Reels on Instagram. Yeah, YouTube Shorts are better on mobile. Alright, I think we're done. I gotta go to work. Get everything done and head back out and do it all again tomorrow. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna go to Milwaukee this weekend. My parents are gonna be there though, so that'll be cool. What's worst about it is I do have to also run down to Kenosha on Monday. But it was too short a notice to get somebody to come and cover Contemporary, so I've got to run down to Milwaukee, run back, sleep in my own bed, which would be cool. And then go back down to Kenosha the next day after Contemporary. But I can sleep in my own bed, so I like my bed. I really do. Alright, what are we doing with our day? What are you doing with your day, you guys? I'm going to work. I don't know what the hell you guys are doing, but I think we got to throw some outro music up and head out of here for the day. Alright, so with that, we had another successful week of chat and conversation. Some good times, some bad times. Some people that didn't like what they saw, but still stuck around, decided they needed to come and weigh in, but they still watched the video on the Twitch side, so that was cool. I like that. But yeah, we're going to head out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted. We will be back here. I think because it's cooling down, I think we'll do some Broken Steel on Saturday. I think that'll be fun. It'll depend on how long I have to stay at work. Because I did try to bank up some hours, so I had some time at the end of my Saturday shift to go and do some work while I'm not Well, nobody else is there, so I can actually get something done. But that might have come to a head last night as well. So anyway, that's personal details. We don't need any of that. We'll be back here on Monday for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Definitely looking forward to that. Otherwise, come back here and join us whenever you can and go back and check out us talking about what's going on in the world and possibly being scorned by our friends on the left who hate the fact that we're independent. Go check out the bill that I put in chat, by the way. It's in the Discord if you guys want to go see it and see just how shady this bill is for yourselves. I think you will be surprised, but maybe not really. Glad to see you guys here. We'll be back here for more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Take care.